Hey guys, so I'm not going to waste any of your time. Let's just talk MacBooks and Apple Silicon at today's Apple November event. Now, I'm not going to go into extreme detail, otherwise this video would be like an hour long, but these are just some of the highlights in case you missed the live stream. And if you want to know any of the exact details, I'll make sure to leave a link right below that subscribe button. All right, so first of all, let's start off with the major thing that was talked about basically throughout this entire presentation, Apple Silicon. Apple Silicon is something that's similar between all the different Macs that were released today. And in case you don't know, Apple released 3 new Macs, a MacBook Air, a Mac Mini, and a MacBook Pro, 13-inch and 13-inch. Something else that's similar between these Macs is that none of them were changed in their design or their aesthetic. They were all changed internally. And of course, the major change that came to their internals was the M1 Apple chip. Now, this M1 chip is pretty cool because it combines the CPU, the GPU, the neural engine, and more things into just one chip. So the M1 chip is made up of an 8-core CPU, an 8-core GPU, and a 16-core neural engine. And according to Apple, it has the world's best performance per watt and the world's fastest integrated graphics. And during the event, they showed this chart, and basically it showed that with 2 times the performance, it only took up a quarter of the power demand. And the exact same thing with the graphics. With 2 times the performance, it only took 1/3 of the power. So definitely hitting home the fact that these are really power efficient chips. Something else that's worth demonstrating is that they showed how iPad apps and iPhone apps are going to be able to run on these new Macs really well, especially with this new chip that is very similar to the ones that are found on the iPhones, but that's more so just a Mac OS Big Sur thing. More on that later. Something else that's worth noting is that the 3 new Macs that were released today, you can buy them right now. Okay, so let's talk about the first Mac, the 13-inch MacBook Air. Now, something that Apple was doing during this entire presentation was throwing shade at Windows, and with this MacBook Air, Apple claims that it will run faster than 98% of the Windows laptops that were released last year. Not only that, but it'll be 3.5 times faster than the Intel version of the exact same MacBook Air. Now, like we said before, it has the exact same design with things like Touch ID and the Retina, but something crazy that they said at this event was that this MacBook Air will have no fan. Not like a silent fan that runs only when doing intense tasks. Like, there's no fan in the machine, which is just crazy because Apple in the past, they've had thermal problems. So it's going to be really interesting to see how these devices run, especially when running really intensive tasks like Final Cut Pro. Apple also said that the M1 chip will improve the camera quality, yet they still decided to put a 720p camera in this MacBook. I don't get it. But apart from that, this laptop does have a really good battery life, 15 hours on the web and up to 18 hours of video playback. The base model of this MacBook will have a 7-core GPU instead of the 8 and will start at 256 gigs. It will come in space gray, gold, and silver and will start at $999. Now, I think that this laptop again will just perform really well just because of all the new power that is available for people that are just getting into Mac. Not to mention the fact that the battery life is just insane, and you get all these new benefits with the M1 chip at a price that does not change. So with this Mac Mini, basically everything that I said about the M1 chip, about, you know, it being really fast, it performing really well, is all still true here. And something that's really nice is that it will support 6K displays. But in terms of the performance, the CPU is going to be 3 times faster, and the GPU is going to be a whole 6 times faster. And just to put that into context, it basically means that you can render out an entire Final Cut Pro timeline 6 times faster. Again, the physical body has not changed and it only comes in that silver color, but it does come in at just $699. Now, when I was listening to the event, I was pretty surprised to hear that price because $699 is really affordable considering everything that you're getting out of this machine. Not to mention that something else that's pretty amazing is just how small and compact the Mac Mini is. And again, like I said before, the M1 chip just makes the performance and the power efficiency on this machine insane. But finally, let's talk about the 13-inch MacBook Pro. Now, when comparing this model to the last generation, the CPU is 2.8 times faster while the graphics is a whole 5 times faster. This is all again thanks to that M1 chip. It again comes with that same 3-pound design and again a 720p camera, which now that I'm thinking about it, since they're using the exact same design, it kind of makes sense that the camera is still that crappy camera. Something that is nice though is the fact that the battery life is now up to 20 hours of battery life, which is just insane, and it starts off at 256 gigs. It has two colors, silver and space gray, and starts at $12.99. Now, like I just mentioned, I think this MacBook is going to be really awesome because of how extreme that battery life is. Just to put into perspective, I have a 2015 MacBook Pro and the battery lasts probably around 8, maybe 9 hours, and if I'm doing Final Cuts or anything that's intense, you bet that that battery life is just so much lower than what it should be. Now, I don't think this MacBook is going to have a 20-hour battery life when doing things like Final Cuts, but even 10 hours when doing really intense things on a laptop is still really good. Something else that Apple pointed out during this event is that this Mac is going to be able to run really graphically intensive games, and Apple is not necessarily known for gaming, but having that ability on this Mac is going to be really nice to see. And again, it keeps coming back to this, it's all because of that new Apple Silicon, that M1 chip, that's just allowing most of this to be possible. And that's basically everything that we saw today at the Apple event. And make sure that you let me know in the comments what your favorite device is, what you're most excited for from this event, and we can get a discussion going about everything that we saw today. Oh, and before you go, make sure you subscribe. The channel's growing really fast, and I just love for you to be a part of that journey. That's it. See ya.